there we go. Sorry, it took me a little bit of time to figure out. Oh, okay. I just got a message from Dr. Khan saying he's waiting to be let in. So let me see if I can figure out how or why he's not getting let in. Let's stop share, admit all, okay. Is everyone else in?
Yes.
Okay.
Participants.
For some reason, there must have been a setting that's set differently when it put everybody in a waiting room before they called, before just coming into the call. So that's probably in the settings somewhere.
No, they have set it up automatically. So basically peer review has changed it. So now every meeting has a password and a waiting room, which is an overkill, but you know, that's the way it is.
Okay, that explains, because in the past, I haven't had that issue. So that was new to me. Okay, so I guess one lesson learned right there. We have to keep, when we start doing a Zoom class for our students, we have to keep an eye on the chat section and actually admit people into the class.
Yeah, but you can go and change it if you like, although some of them are locked because as long as you use the PVAMU basically domain, they have locked it, so they have like administrative control. So I don't know if you can change that or not, but they can go and play with the. Yeah,
that's kind of frustrating because when I switched over to the PowerPoint, I could not see the function of anybody waiting to be let in. I couldn't see that. I believe we have there's no one else in the waiting room right now. So I'll go ahead and switch back over to the PowerPoint screen. Can someone confirm for me that you are seeing the PowerPoint screen?
I do.
Okay,
yeah,
excellent.
it's good.
Okay, all right, so let's get started. And once again, these are best practices. By no means am I or the teaching committee trying to tell anyone how to run their class, what they should or shouldn't do. These are tips and tricks that we've learned that have helped us along the way. I just got a notification of, I think, more people in the waiting room. Okay.
You may be able to.
This is kind
I
of
don't
an
have
annoying
control.
function.
Yeah, but you can go. This is good for one-on-one waiting for students. But go to participants, see if you can remove waiting room. So there is one of the options. You can uncheck it most likely.
I don't know if I could do that while I'm actually in a live session. At least I don't see how to do it.
Click on participants.
Okay.
And then more.
Okay, you're right. Allow students to unmute themselves. Let's see. Allow to rename themselves, mute themselves, play exit chime. All right, I think I did it. You're right. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So now anyone coming in should be able to go right into the class. So sorry about all that,
Yeah,
guys,
hopefully.
that is helpful. So if you double click on participants, so right now I have so you can see, I can see everybody's pictures. You double click on that, participants, it'll take you to an area where you have more functions. You can go to options, and then a little menu will pop up and it'll tell you that you can let people in without having to actually let them automatically come in once they sign in. Okay. All right, so let's get started, guys. So as I started off saying before, these are tips that we as a teaching committee have put together. This is by no means us giving anyone a directive on how to run their class or how they should do things. But these are things that we've seen that have worked quite well. Feel free to chime in if you have any comments on any of these slides. And then obviously when we finish this, we'll be set up to for questions, and answers and sharing the best practices across the faculty. So one, our recommendation is that you keep your normal class hours. Instead of having an in-person class, just switch to the online Zoom classes. And for me personally, students have been very accepting of this. and they like to have the class at the same time because it already works with their existing schedule. We did have conversations about moving our class an hour or two in a different direction because one of my classes is at 9:30 a.m. And without a doubt, the students preferred to keep it at the same time because if I moved it 30 minutes back later, then it would interfere with their other classes. So you can continue on, in a sense, all your normal activities, but just do it on Zoom as opposed to doing it in class. If Zoom is too much, then you may want to switch to one day classes. So maybe you have one class session, if it's 2 days a week, one class session where people can come in as they need to, ask questions, ask for help and support, almost like an office hours type of setup. Then the other class, you're lecturing, because you'll probably find that you will go through content much quicker in the setting with the Zoom than you do in class, at least for me, because there's fewer interruptions and there's less likelihood of kind of veering off on different topics. I know that the provost put out not to make a big deal about attendance, so by no means would I countermand that, but I do recommend taking attendance. The way I take it is I ask each student to send me a message via the chat function on Zoom. That way I have a list of them, and then I take that list and I can go to e-courses and mark all the students present. Conversely, at least 80 to 90% of the students who are in my Zoom classes are doing it on a computer. So they could then log into e-courses at the same time and mark themselves present. So some of them do that, but I found that to be an unreliable way of taking attendance because not every student can flip back and forth from Zoom to the desktop to mark themselves present with e-courses. Now, the reason why I take attendance is that it helps me understand who has stayed engaged with the class. Because at the end of the semester, I know we're going to have issues with some students who didn't come into any of the Zoom classes, who didn't respond to emails, who are now trying to get everything crammed in the last couple of days before the end of the semester. And I'll be able to go back and see, oh, they weren't present at all, and then ask them, well, what's going on? I'll try to help them as best possible, but I'll also know that there was a significant lack of engagement on their part, which probably explains for the difficulty that they're having. So that's why I take attendance. It's not punitive to harm against, to have harm for them. It's just to give me insight on that student's behavior after we had to switch to an online setup. Also, strongly encourage faculty to record lectures. Now, this is a bit of a pet peeve for me. I've kind of said this, I think, in several faculty meetings where I asked faculty, would you be willing to record? Or the teaching committee has expressed interest in trying to help faculty record their lessons. So what I would say here is, if you're going to teach a Zoom class and you're going over content, absolutely record it and then post it up online for the students to be able to go back to later on. It's a wonderful study technique, and it also helps aid you. There's a lot of benefit. It helps aid you with the class. If a student misses the class, they can always go back and watch the lecture at a different point in time. Also, you'll find that there's a tremendous benefit going into next semester. If you actually have a number of lectures recorded, you can move those, when you migrate your class to next semester, fall 2020, you can move those recordings right on along as well. And now those recordings can provide supplemental training and education to students for your class, whether it's face-to-face or if it's online or what have you. It's just a terrific resource to have even going forward. So it's a practice that I've made use of quite a bit. I started doing it a couple of years ago. Also, be willing to allow the students to have say-so. This is kind of coming from my research and my doctoral program of studying organizational behavior. That individuals tend to be much more compliant and less willing to complain if they've had say-so in whatever the decisions that are taking place that affect them. So if they have voice, that's what we call it in the research world. If they have voice and they were allowed to share that voice or that opinion, then they're less likely to rebel against the decision, fight against it, even if the decision is not something that goes in their favor. So what I did as far as my classes is I had an introductory Zoom class just to kind of make sure people knew how to get on the technology. And we talked about the class structure. How do we want to take care of the class for the rest of the semester? I already had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I wanted to share that with the students and get their feedback as to whether they felt that was reasonable, whether they felt it was too hard, too aggressive, and so forth. So I took their feedback in consideration. I made adjustments on the fly, and then I was able to post that up to the students. Here's how we're going to play out the rest of the semester, when assignments are going to be due, et cetera, et cetera. And from there, I expect to get very little pushback because the students actually gave their support. And I recorded the session as well as documentation that I had student support in how I restructured the class. Based on the surveys that the teaching committee has done over the past few years, evaluating or assessing how many of the faculty, the College of Business faculty, are actually using e-courses, we have over 90% of our faculty who currently use e-courses in one way or another. The most popular ways are posting assignments, posting PowerPoints, collecting assignments. So with that said, I think that the College of Business faculty, we're in a very strong position to make this migration with as few difficulties as possible. So we may need to, some of our faculty are probably gonna have to up their game in terms of using e-courses for tests and quizzes and those likes, but we can make that extension pretty easily. Also, at the end of the slide here, we have a couple faculty members. This suggestion came from Dr. Tandon actually, that we kind of have a go-to group of faculty that if you have a question or how do I do something, you know, you just don't know how to do it, you don't want to go through tech support because you may feel like it takes a little bit too long to get an answer or so. There's a small set of us faculty members who have volunteered ourselves to answer questions. So you can come to us and we'll be happy to take your question and see if we know how to solve it, because we may have already ran into that issue for ourselves. Assignments can be easily added to e-courses, you know, using the assignment feature. And with this, you're basically posting up a document, a Word document, PDF, or anything like that for students to complete. They would then complete that document and then they would submit it back using that same link on e-courses. So that's how we do assignments. There's another feature which you may find useful, which is lessons. And lessons allow you to actually build out a series of, for lack of a better word, screenshots or slides or whatever. They kind of think of like a website, or like what we do for our teaching training that we do for the university. We would read the content on this slide, we can click the next button, the next screen comes up. Read that content, click the next button. Read that content or watch the video that's posted, and then click the next content. And we could insert questions at any point in those slides. What I found useful is maybe give the students 6 to 8 slides like that, and maybe I embed a video in that as well, which is easy to do. Just take your YouTube video and put the link on the page, and it'll post the video for you. And then I'll have a series of 5 to 7 questions at the end. So the content from those first 8 pages, I use that content, I make 5 to 7 questions, multiple choice style questions, that the students are required to answer. And that counts as one lesson. And I call that their homework assignments. Oh, yes, 2 people raised their hands, sorry, yes. Let me see how to access that. If you raise your hand, feel free to say your question. No? Okay. I'm not sure how to read your hand. I'm still learning, still becoming an expert myself at Zoom. So I just saw a flag that 2 people had questions. Okay, Dr. Khan, I see you're one of the people that had a question. Did you? You may need to unmute yourself, yes.
Yes, please do. Now I can see I'm unmuted. Well, my question was, can you take us to e-courses to actually show how to add assignments or how to add lesson and so on?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, I'm gonna click stop share on my PowerPoint slides, and I'm just gonna share my overall desktop screen.
Okay.
That should allow me to do that. So
Okay.
give me one moment to do that. Okay. The screen that you're able to see, I have 2 desktop screens here in my home office. You're looking at a screen that says Zoom at PVAMU.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me go to e-courses then. So simply log on to eCourses. You would go to, be sure to click up here on this little gear icon, turn editing on. That's important. So then now you're able to actually add resources and the likes to your eCourses. So here, click add an activity or a resource. Okay, you'll get this screen that pops up. And here's where you could add all the activities from eCourses. I tend to use either the assignment feature here, or I will use the lesson feature. These are my two favorites to use. The lesson lets you kind of build this module, if you will, this training module that students can progress through. They can answer questions, and then eCourses automatically grades those questions as long as it's not an essay or a short answer. If it's essay or short answer, you'll have to go in and manually grade those. But if you stick with the multiple choice, true and false type questions, it will grade it for you, which is great because it gives the students immediate feedback. So here I click the assignment function. You click add. And it's going to come up adding a new assignment. So you'll put in here a name, example assignment. You can also put in here a description of what you want that assignment to be. If you want the content from this description to be posted actually on the eCourses page so students can see it, click this button right here, and it will actually display your description text on your eCourses class homepage. Now, if you did that for every assignment and you had, like I have, an assignment for each chapter, your eCourses page can get very long because you're adding a paragraph of text for each assignment, and that's like 12 assignments for me. So you can decide whether you want to do that. If you're only going with 2 or 3 assignments, maybe you want to have that up or not. It's totally your choice. And then here is where you drag and drop the assignment. So I'm just going to pick a random file from my desktop here someplace. And you just drag and drop it onto there. Or if you could click it, you can click like here, add files, and then it'll pull up. Oops, there you go. You could now go and scroll through your desktop to pick whatever files that you want. So either drag or drop it or pull it. Here's where you set your dates. So allow submission form. You could set, this will allow them when this assignment will post up as available to them. So if it's your philosophy that you want to be able to control when students can even start their assignments, exams, or quizzes, then you want to set that date. Like maybe you don't want them to start this assignment until the 15th of April. So you can set that date accordingly. Me personally, I don't tend to do that. I tend to let people be able to start the assignments whenever they want to. If they want to start early, they can start working on something early. It's up to them. But you can set your due date of when the assignment is due. Make sure that it's clicked, this enabled is clicked. There's a check mark in it. That's how you know it's active. The cutoff date, so you can have your due date, but you can still allow students to submit assignments even late. That's what your cutoff date is saying. So it's like, well, it's due on the 15th, but I'm actually going to give students until the 20th to submit it. And eCourses will tell you that this was submitted on time, this person submitted it late, but it still will allow them to submit it if you have the cutoff date extended later. So this is really great if you want to allow students to catch up on old assignments. You can set this date for whatever. You may want to set it for May 2nd, for example, the last day of class, and now tell students, submit all your work, and it will allow them to submit it, but it will be considered late, and you'll be able to see that. And then you can have eCourses give you a reminder of when to actually grade it. Okay. For me, I like to try to have assignments that eCourses grades it right away. That way, students get feedback. Okay. This here one lets you tell how many files can the student upload. So most times, if it's one assignment, the students are just going to upload one assignment, or one file. But if it's something that may require them to upload 3 or 4 different documents or 5, then you could change this number, as much as you want to, up to, I believe, 20. Okay. Let's see, any other major things? Okay. This is really good. This is important right here. And I'm not sure how deep y'all want to go into this, but this is really great when you're organizing your grade book. So if you have your grade book already, and that will be over here underneath grades, I have mine set up, grouped into quizzes, exams, homework assignments. But you can then, when adding a new assignment, you can tell it where do you want that to be considered at? Exams, extra credit, homework, and we'll actually put this assignment in that right area on the grade book, which will help e-courses calculate their grade correctly. So that's very important. We'll put this under homework, for example. And then the last thing that's kind of important here is whether or not you want to put a password on it. I'm looking for that feature. Maybe that's just for quizzes and exams, the password.
Yeah.
Okay. So also this is helpful. It's just kind of advanced feature. If you want to put a restriction on this, for example, a person must get an A or get a B on this assignment before they could take this next assignment. Here's where you could do that. You can add your restriction. If it's a grade, you can put that, and then you have to choose whatever the assignment is and put your grade that they have to. So this is where you could do some additional restrictions. And then click save and return to course. Since this is not a real assignment, I'm not going to click save and return to course. I'll hit cancel. Okay, we have someone else raise their hand. Let's see. Did somebody else have a question?
I think Dr. Chong has a question.
Okay. I'm trying to sort out how to get back to that. So give, okay. I'm trying to find Dr. Chong here in the, here, and I think I got to unmute him, right? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Busy.
You're welcome. Yes, Dr. Chong, leave you're unmuted now.
No, I don't have any question. Sorry, I'm not sure why.
Oh, okay. No problem. No problem. With this same feature, if you wanted to do the lesson, it is a bit more complicated. So I would say probably follow me one-on-one. I'll show you how to kind of get started with it, but that's a bit more complicated. But follow me one-on-one on that. But you would go to you go here, you'd find the lesson link. That's assignments. Scroll down to where it says lesson. There it is. Click add. You would do the same thing in terms of titling your lesson, giving a description, setting your availability dates and all that. So just like we did the other assignment. However, there's going to be another step beyond this where you have to build the content out for your lesson. So for each of those, for lack of a better word, web pages that a student will have to read or watch a video and then click next, you'll have to literally build those out. So that goes a bit beyond the scope of what we want to talk about right now. And I'd say follow up with me one-on-one. I'd be more than happy to show you how I've done that. And it may take some time to get it done, but it is well worth it because you can use those lessons over and over and over again for semesters to come. And eCourses grades them automatically for you. So it allows for immediate feedback to students. They understand the format. It works very well, but it does require some effort to get it set up. So let's go to PowerPoint slides now. Okay, it's sharing the wrong screen. I got to switch screens here. Here we go. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. When it comes to quizzes and exams, I think this is one of the areas where eCourses really helps us out, is that we can put our quizzes and exams online. Everybody's probably gonna have their own style of doing it. The way I've done it, and other faculty can share their approaches, is I've created a database of questions that I personally wrote for each chapter. And when I give an exam, I give an exam that covers 3 chapters. So if you have a database of questions that you've written, maybe you have 30 questions per chapter, well, that gives you 90 questions in total for that exam if you're given an exam over 3 chapters. And that's how I tend to structure my exams. The great thing about it is that eCourses will grade it automatically for you, and you have a wide variety of question choices. I know there was some talk about how do I do exams if I'm in a quantitative class and they have to do mathematical problems. We'll take a look at that in just a second. It does take work to build up your exam database, your question database. If you use a textbook that has a database of questions already, then you can upload those using Respondus. Once again, that's going to be another lecture into itself. How do I upload using Respondus? Once you learn how to do that, it's pretty easy, but you can literally upload hundreds of questions at a time if you're using a test bank. If you're not using a test bank and you're making your own questions, then you want to go right into eCourses and actually type your question in and type the answers in and go from there. And if someone wants me to walk through that, I'm happy to do so. Or if you want to be able to know how to do that, we can do that on a, on another call. Dr. Tanda, did you have a question? Let's see your hands up. I think you're unmuted, or I'm trying to unmute you.
I'm trying, yeah. Okay. Now these questions have to be what, multiple choice only, or can they be short answers or essay type?
Yes, you have multiple choice, short answer. As a matter of fact, here, let me show you the type. Let me show you the types of questions here.
No, for lesson to go in and grade them automatically, can it grade short answers? And
Yes.
Oh, really?
It can grade short answers, but here's a trick with that, is that you have to tell it what the answer should be. So let's say the answer was, who's the first president of the United States? That's your short answer question. So the answer obviously is George Washington. So you have to put George Washington in as an answer, and eCourses will compare everyone's response against what you put in. So when you do that, you have to put all the variations possible. George Washington with a capital G, lowercase w for Washington, capital G, capital W, lowercase g, lowercase w, all the variations that a student may type in. Because if it doesn't match exactly, it accounts.
Oh, it has to match exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
basically, multiple choice would be a better way.
In that sense, yes. But I think that when it comes to quantitative classes, the short answer is a really good function because 24 is 24. You see, 135 is 135. So you can require student to answer questions either in whole, or if it's a large question, large mathematical question with multiple parts, you can ask the students to answer certain parts, and they'll type in the answers using numbers, and short answer would be very helpful for that. And it makes it difficult for students to guess on that. And if they're going to engage in cheating or whatever else, they're really trusting that person to have the right answer. If they're, that's another conversation we'll talk about a little bit later. But you can, yes, you can use it. There's also other techniques that lend themselves specifically to mathematical oriented questions and classes. There's questions that are specifically designed for that. Ms. Stevelin, I probably said your last name wrong, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, you can talk. You're unmuted.
To share your screen now, because I lost it.
I couldn't quite hear you. Could you say it again for me?
I can't see the screen.
Oh, you lost the screen. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I saw there are other questions. Other people had some questions. Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on. Let's move on. If you have a question, please let me know. I believe I'm trying to unmute people. I think it's kind of I understand the security of it, but it makes it difficult as you're navigating the software. So I'm gonna try to unmute everyone. That way, if you have a question, you could just ask.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Oh, so regarding the muting and unmuting, again, if you have a big class, maybe you want to keep it off. But for like a meeting like this, again, where you set the waiting room, there you can allow people to unmute or unmute themselves. Also, when you're creating a meeting in Zoom, you can change that feature as well, that whether people can mute or unmute themselves. So you can allow people to unmute, and then you can ask your students to keep themselves mute until they have a question.
Okay. I've gone to participants and I've removed the restrictions. So if anyone has a question, you are able to unmute yourself at this point. So thank you. One of the biggest challenges for me is being able to keep the screens active and also find all the features in eCourses. I mean, that I'm trying to present from. So that's like the biggest challenge. And then I don't know exactly what you guys see. So do you guys see the PowerPoint screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Can I make another comment regarding the attendance? There is a function built in Zoom that you, after the meeting is over, you can get a report of who participated, when they joined, or not exactly, I guess, when they joined as well. No, the duration they were in class. So it tells you basically who was in class. It gives you a CSV file after every meeting.
Where do we do that?
Duration.
Is that automatic, or is that something we
So
have?
you have to go and generate a report. You have to go to settings, go to advanced settings. So open the web page, the web settings. There is a reporting. You can get a usage report which basically tells you who participated in class and for how long.
And can we do that? Do we have to do that before the class, or can we do that after the fact?
No, after the class. After the Zoom meeting is over, you can go and get a usage report.
So even if I did a class a week ago, I can go back and get a usage report on that from Zoom.
You should be able to. I don't know how long they keep the information, but after so I had a class, kind of a short class, question and answers, and I got the report right after. But you can go and check. I'm not sure how long they keep it, but that's also another option. So you don't really need to take attendance while you're in session.
Okay, cool. When it comes to exams, there's some recommendations that we have. We know that in an online setting where we have students that are living close quarters to each other, the odds of people engaging in cheating is going to be high. They're going to do it. I don't think that we can stop it. I don't think even that should be our primary goal, is to stop all cheating activities. I think we'll be spinning our tires a lot, but what we can do is make it more challenging for students to engage in that behavior. To that extent, we should randomly choose questions from our database. The one thing I would say is a benefit probably for our quantitative classes is that you can use the same question stem, but change the numbers in that stem. So as a very simplistic example, if I were to say, 12 times 14 equals what? You can just now say, 13 times 12 or 10 times 9. You can keep the same stem and just change the numbers. And that way you should be able to make a lot of questions to populate your database pretty easily without much difficulty. Also, make exams and quizzes so they cover multiple chapters, so you're just pulling from a greater amount of content. Publish the deadlines to students. Also recommend that you email them, to remind them that this deadline is coming up. There has been a little quirk on eCourses when it comes to deadlines. So if you schedule an exam, you build it in, you build it out like I showed earlier, and you have an exam, and there's a date that's due. If you go in and change that date, sometimes it does not update correctly on the students' calendars. So the students will actually see both the new and the old date. And that has caused confusions for the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 months in classes that I've had with students. So it helps if you send them an email to remind them of the deadlines. You want to set time limits on the exams. You want to understand how long does it take on average for each question. It took me a couple semesters before I figured out, on average, students can complete my questions within like 2 minutes and 17 seconds per question. So I use that as a framework to build out a reasonable amount of time for students to complete an exam. I tend to, and this is totally up to everybody, but I tend to remove the backwards function. So students, once they complete a question and they move to the next, they cannot go backwards. Once again, this is just part of my anti-cheating behaviors. Students have to get used to that. So it's important that I notify them up front at the beginning of the semester that they will not be allowed to go backwards on exams and quizzes. The thought here is if they get to question number 27 and then a friend walks by and says something to them, oh yeah, I remember that was question number 8. They could jump back to 8, change that answer accordingly, and then jump forward. So I tend to restrict that function. Okay, I see someone has raised their hand. You should be able to unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. Okay, so if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and then you could ask the question. I saw that somebody's hand was raised, but I couldn't tell exactly who it was. So also, I tend to have the exam show one question at a time instead of showing all the questions. And this is a feature that you can set up, you want one question at a time, or do you want to be able to show all 30 questions on the exam, and then students can kind of just bounce around and complete it as they will. It just makes it easier for students to cheat. So quantitative exams. So let me flip the screen here. We've already talked about some of these things, but I'm going to switch back to the e-courses screen, and I'm going to show you some of the questions that you're able to, well, actually, I take it back. I'm not going to do that. I have it right here. So there's no need to go into e-courses. So let me. You have calculated questions. There are 3 different types. These are questions where you could actually put numbers in and force students to do calculations. And they have 3 different types of those that you can do. So you may have to kind of play around with it for a little bit to make sure you're able to write a question that you want, and then actually have students do the calculations right there on the screen. You have drag and drop questions where you can have multiple answers and the students have to drag the answers into the right place. So this way, let's say if I had a question that had multiple parts to it, and I could force students to kind of drag the answers into the right places. Short answer questions, we've talked about that already. You have missing words. So here I could write an exam and maybe some of the numbers, I don't put the answer in there. Students have to populate that answer themselves. So it's a missing word type of question. So I could say 12 times missing word equals 24. And then the student would need to put 2 in the missing word place. And then you have multiple choice questions. So you can simply have the entire question up there. Students presumably would need to do the calculation, the mathematical, and to get the correct answer and then select the right answer. Obviously, we like to see the students work. So what I would encourage you to do is for extra credit, maybe you can require the students to send a copy of their work, and upload a copy of their work to a file or so for that particular exam. You can do that. Some other important points. So we should assume the students are going to cheat. To that extent, we are online, so the exams and things, the quizzes, they should be open book, open note. We want to write our questions with that in mind. Be aware that if you're using a database that came from a publisher, that many of those databases can be found online. And what I've had students do in the past, especially when I used databases about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, students would take part of the question, like the STEM, they would go to Google and they would type that STEM into Google. And then Google would pull up the answer for them. Because those databases are somewhere in somebody's system online and they're not protected behind a firewall. So students can actually Google it and actually get the answer. So just be aware of that. I tend to write out my own questions. I have questions that are directly from the content, and then I have implied questions, questions that require the students to have to think, so there's not really an answer out there anywhere on the internet for that question. They have to, it's an implied question. Check your email frequently, for e-courses platform, the students are going to be emailing us a lot. Set up at least 2 live sessions where students can call in via video. So this is a great way to do your office hours. You can keep your same office hours, but just set it up as a call and post a link up on e-courses, and the students can click into that and join at any point in time to ask questions. I strongly encourage you to record all sessions. there's two options. You could have it recorded and Zoom will keep your recording in the cloud. So it's accessible via a link and you don't have to worry about storing it. You can take that link and post it on your eCourses pages or whatever you want to do with it. Or you can tell it to download as a file and it will download that recording to your desktop or laptop. Be aware that if you're doing an hour-long session, that's a pretty big file and it can start to eat up hardware space pretty quickly. Also be aware you can always use external videos from YouTube and articles as appropriate to supplement your class. It is really good oftentimes to have an alternative video there because somebody else explains the same concept. It may, students may understand a little bit more just because somebody else is coming from a different angle. So it's a good idea to use those. We talked about this already, record your lectures. I know some faculty have already started doing this. We talked about some software programs that can be used to record lectures. So at the most rudimentary level, PowerPoint allows you to record lectures. You can do voiceover recordings with PowerPoint, save your PowerPoint as a presentation. So when you're saving it, go to Save As, click Presentation, and then you can post that file onto eCourses, and students will only be able to watch that as a presentation. It will have your voice recording and automatically flip to the slides accordingly. So the one drawback with that, which is why it's not my recommended, is that PowerPoint tends to cut off the last 5 seconds of each slide. So you'll be talking and then it'll go dead for like about 3 to 5 seconds as it flips to the next slide. And some of what you said could be lost. So you have to time if you're going to do that, give your do your audio recording, wait 3 or 4 seconds, and then hit the next button to go to the next PowerPoint slide, and then start talking again. You can use Adobe software. The easiest for all of us is probably just using Zoom. So just like we are recording this session, just set up a Zoom meeting for yourself. Don't need to invite anybody on there. Host the meeting and tell it to share your desktop screen. But on that screen, that's where you have your PowerPoint slide. And have it in full magnification, and then just go through your lecture. And once you're done, you can click End, and Zoom will then end that, and you have your lecture saved. That's the easiest way to go. The software I use to record lectures is called Flashback Pro. It works very well for me. It's very simple. It's a nice introductory recording software. It's $59 though, and you download that onto your desktop computer or laptop. If it's your work laptop, you're going to need permission to install this software. But I use it and it works great for me for the last 3 to 4 years. And I've only paid the $59 once when I first started using the program. And then lastly, you can use GoToMeeting. This is a competitor of Zoom, but they also offer recording services. So you would do a video conference call with yourself, record your lecture, and then save it, download it, or leave it in the cloud, however you want to use it. And but GoToMeeting also offers a transcription. So if you wanted them to transcribe your meeting, so you got a Word document of your lecture and also a PowerPoint slide with the audio for your lecture, you could do that. GoToMeeting offers that service. The first 14 days of GoToMeeting is free, and then from there you would pay a charge. Lastly, this is the last slide here. Lastly, I just would encourage everybody to remember to be kind to our students. Just like we're going through a transition and uploading everything online and presenting online, and I had a lot of back and forth even in this presentation with the Zoom software. We want to extend that same courtesy, consideration, and mercy to our students because they're going through it oftentimes for 3 to 5 classes, and unlike us, they have a grade at stake which could affect their GPA. So we want to reassure them. What I do is I tell the students that I'm here to help you. I'm actually here to be your friend, not your judge. So come to me and the answer is automatically yes to what I can do to help you, unless there's some reason why I can't, or the answer has to be no. And that way students feel free to come to me with whatever concerns that they have. We have 3 faculty here that are willing to help answer questions as you're transitioning to online. And so if you don't want to go through tech support, come to one of us first. Dr. Osho, myself, Dr. Holloway. And if there's any other faculty on the call that would like to offer up themselves for that, feel free to just say that and we'll include you in there. But you can reach out to us with any questions that you may have. That wraps up my lecture, what I wanted to share with everybody. And we want to open up now to any questions or any best practices that other faculty members may have and would like to share. And you can unmute yourself if you have any comments. Okay, I'm scrolling through pictures. I don't see anyone talking or unmuting themselves. Well, I will take this opportunity to wrap up the session. I'd like to thank all of you for joining, and I really do hope that you learned something from this, and there's something that can make your life a little bit easier and make your students' lives a little bit easier. Once again, feel free to follow me offline if you have any kind of questions, comments, or concerns that I can help you or anyone in the teaching committee could be of assistance with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vesi.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's good.
Yes, you guys did put up a good show.
Thank you,
And,
Dr. Tandon.
I'm sure people will come in and ask you questions. I for sure will.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. Vesi,
Yes.
you can save the recording and send it to everybody.
Yes. Okay. Will do. Will do.
Thank you.
That's my trademark smile. So I'll go ahead and end the session.
Dr. Hashim, how do you get your background?
You have to go to video. He told me earlier at the bottom. Go to video, click the.
Can you unmute him so that I can hear what he's saying?
Oh, okay. It says it's there.
Okay.
I still can't hear you.
Okay, he should be unmuted now. Okay, he's unmuted now.
Okay, now I'm on mute. Okay. No, it's well, you can go to settings on the main Zoom screen, and then under settings there's a virtual background. There you can get your virtual background.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, so there are several pictures to choose from, and then you can add your own picture.
Okay.
Like Frankfurt here.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. Take care, everyone.
Okay.